Joining us now, Mike Baker, former CIA covert operations officer. Mike, thank you for joining us. ISIS hasn't claimed responsibility, as Holly mentioned right now, for the attack, even though the Turkish government believes that they are behind it. ISIS, as she mentioned, rarely claims responsibilities in these Turkish attacks. So what's the case now?
Well, I mean, the first point is that we'll get definitive answers on who was responsible, whether it was Kurdish separatists or ISIS, once we finish the forensic work on at the bomb blast site. And typically, the evidence that you gather from the type of explosive that's used, the construction of the bombs, obviously, if they collect DNA from the bombers themselves, that will point to who was responsible. There tend to be certain similarities in methodologies used by the various groups. Why, if it's ISIS, why aren't they claiming responsibility at this stage? There could be several reasons, and I'm speculating, but in part, their goal here is to essentially create sufficient chaos to bring down the current government. And so, leaving the speculation open that perhaps this was the work of Kurdish separatists may feed into that. The other part is that, look, this is unpopular. They're not attacking a military or police target. They're attacking civilians. So, there may be an element of that as well.
Mike, we know that this was, in fact, highly coordinated. At least 3 people believed to have been involved in this attack. Was this a failure of law enforcement to stop this plot from happening?
Well, this is a very unsatisfying answer, but I'm trying to be, pragmatic and realistic with your viewers, and that is that no, there's no way to stop this. Frankly, we could if we lock things down completely, but we're not going to live in that world. So you look at Ataturk as an example in terms of the security that they had in place. It's a very large facility. This is not some provincial airport. And there was a very large police and military presence there. They, as was pointed out just a moment ago by Holly, they have concentric rings of security on the perimeters, but there's only so much you can do. And this has been going on. You could go back to the 70s and 80s, the JRA and other terrorist groups that had attacked the soft parts of airports, the arrivals area, the departures area, prior to the security clearance point. So this is not something new. But again, could we enhance our physical security, say here in the U.S. around our airports? Well, certainly we could. But we have to remember, you have to balance that effective security with, some freedom of movement, some level of efficiency that the general population is willing to accept. And that's the balance you're always trying to strike.
We know soft targets are a big focus for militants, but are there ways to prevent this from happening, or is it just one of those things, Mike, that you just can't prevent?
Well, it's defeatist, I suppose, in a way to say, look, this is the new normal, but, frankly, this is the reality, the riskiness of the world that we live in right now. And, there are things that we can learn from every attack, unfortunately, but you take that away, you do a hot wash after every attack, and you say, what can we do, here on home turf, or what can our allies do to try to enhance the security at some of these targets? The answer is we've got a lot of measures in place. There's a tremendous amount of resource put into the protection of an airport, as an example, that the people don't even see. We all are aware of TSA, and that's fine, but there's a lot of other security that goes on that we don't see. Now, can we do that more efficiently? Sure. But again, you have this question of, can you push the perimeters out further? You're just creating other issues by doing that. Imagine LAX or O'Hare, where, we push the perimeter out and say, we're going to search every vehicle, as an example, prior to dropping off or picking up passengers. That's not going to last for very long. People have an appetite for additional security after an attack such as Ataturk, but that appetite doesn't last for very long.
Mike Baker, former CIA covert officer. Thank you very much, Mike, for joining us.
Sure. Thank you.